everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Skeleton Crew, the Rad Tech Show. I'm your host, Jen Callahan, and today I have with me a special woman. Her name is Jence Garza. She's joining me from Texas. And at this time, she's made some significant strides in the realm of education and staffing within the healthcare field. So thanks so much for taking the time to be with me here today.
Well, thank you for having us. Thank you.
So Jence is the CEO for Advanced Healthcare Education Center, and then also too for Med Relief Staffing. So two great things, working hand in hand in the healthcare field, I have to say.
It is a unique environment, but you're right. It goes hand in hand. In fact, that's how our staffing company got started. It sprung from people in our classes, either looking for a technologist or being a technologist looking for a job, and voila. A few years later, here came the staffing company.
Jence, before we jump into all that, give me a little bit of a background history of yourself. Like, where did you start out from? Were you a technologist, like in the field, and then you slowly made your way into education and then the staffing as well?
Yeah, I've been a tech for, I hate to say it, 35 years now. I have worked rural health. I've worked for a large healthcare system. I spent 5 years in the cardiac cath lab, and then I started off in diagnostic and then went to the cath lab for 5 years and then went into hospital administration. And I have been in Houston now for 22 years. Just celebrated my anniversary here with the company 2 weeks ago. So it's been on both sides, from a tech to administrator to a vendor.
Great, great. At this point, you're now in the education aspect of it. Are you feeling like you might like this the best so far, or?
I loved the cath lab. I loved everything about being in the cath lab except being on call, honestly. But being in administration is where I've spent the majority of my career, so it's probably where the most comfortable. But right now, this is one of the most exciting times for education, professional development, and some of the stuff that we've got going on. Forgive me, I normally don't dress like this. We are celebrating our 35th birthday here at AHEC. So for the next couple of weeks, we've got a lot of internally things planned so we can have some fun just to celebrate. Like I said, it is coming post-COVID and all of the craziness that went on for the last 3 years. You got to take some time to celebrate. That's what we're doing.
So talking about AHEC, you said 35 years in existence. That's a nice chunk of time there for something to be going through with education. And then you have been a part of that for how long at this point?
22 years as of the end of September.
Wow. So did you kind of do that as like an ancillary role? Like, were you still working in the hospital administration and doing part of the education on the side?
No, actually, when I started at AHEC, I started on our staffing side. I came over to be the administrator for Med Relief Staffing, and then I rose and became a vice president and ran that section for probably the first 15 or so years I was here. And it's only been in the last 7 or 8, that while I had some HR responsibilities with the education company, it's been probably, like I said, the last 7 or so that I've been with both and started teaching about 4 years ago. I was a little slow to that because I was a little intimidated, but I will tell you, being in the classroom with students, with people from varied backgrounds and different parts of the country is a lot of fun. I really, really enjoy it.
So, I was on your website earlier today, just checking out everything. And I did see that you offer in-person courses, but then you also offer it as a live stream webinar, which is great for people like myself. Like, I'm in the Philadelphia region, but a MAMO course I would totally be interested in, and it's great because you have it offered through the webinar. That's awesome.
Yeah, actually, our COO and our president, Peggy Hoosier and Marilyn Sackett, started the webinars, I guess, around 2015, really when Zoom started, well before COVID. And so, yeah, we have that platform. It goes along hand in hand with kind of what our philosophy is. Being a corporate style education company, we try to have offerings for people no matter where they're at. For example, when I was a new tech, the town I lived in didn't even have a stoplight. So much less a junior college. Closest junior college was, 15, 20 miles up the road. The closest four-year college was 100 miles away. So if I wanted to progress in my profession, I would either have to move or it would be very difficult. By having the corporate style education and being able to deliver it either via webinar or sending our consultants into a specific location. It allows for people in that sort of environment to have that same quality option and hopefully an impact on their patients in that area.
So the webinars that are offered, do you have to be present during it while it's going on live, or is it something that is recorded and then say someone like myself, like I'm in a different time zone, could I go back and view it after the fact?
Both. It's one of those things that we do have some on demand, and then we have some that are live, just like you and I are talking now. And then we have others that are played. And then the instructors or a technologist is available to always answer questions. We always have someone available that can answer questions regarding that. And it is a content expert.
So we were talking a little bit before we started recording about, I had mentioned Mamma, like something, it's been on my radar for now. I'm going to say at least like 4 years. And like, I keep thinking about taking the plunge, but I just haven't done it yet. You said with COVID, the mass exodus of some staff, that your education center is now offering an incentive for coming into possibly a new modality. Do you want to talk about that?
I would be happy to. And first off, I would encourage anybody who is even interested in doing the MQSA 40-hour training. I myself did it back in January, whenever it was time for me to renew my CE. It was one of those things I hadn't done, honestly, since the early 90s. I knew how much it had changed. I wanted to learn more about it and have that hands-on experience. But there are fewer mammographers out practicing now than there were just a few years ago. And I know Joint Commission and other places have women's health initiatives. And so mammography should or is at the top of that. We're very excited about some of the things that we do in mammography, not only the consultations like for facilities with their ACR or just if they want to be proactive in their positioning, but for those that want to do initial training. We were endowed last spring with a scholarship. And so for our October class and our April class, I believe, we will offer to applicants 2 different scholarships that will pay for everything: the class, their transportation, their hotel, their food while they're here in Houston. And if they need their clinical site, we can do that as well. We are one of the fewer ones that offer a clinical site for somebody who needs that they can't go back to their facility, but they want to become a mammographer and need to get their initial 25. We can help with that. This growth scholarship is honestly exciting because the 2 types of radiographers that we're looking for, one is a more seasoned that is looking for a change of pace and a way to upskill their profession. And then the other one is for someone who is newer into the profession and is wanting to make a difference.
That's great. What's the criteria then? I mean, I know that there are the 2 different technologies that you would be looking for, but is there certain criteria that an applicant would have to meet to qualify for it?
Yes, ma'am. There is a application process, and then they have to write an essay about the who's and the what's and the whys and submit their resume and a couple of other documents. And then we have a wonderful board that is reviewing the applications for us and making the recommendations as to who should be awarded. Your basic professional stuff.
Yeah. That's great. And then a roundabout, I mean, if you like, hate to get into like numbers, but what's the tuition look like in terms of doing a course like this?
It depends. It can be anywhere from around $1,000 to, depending on where you're coming from and how long you need to stay, it could be 2 or 3,000. That doesn't include airfare because we all know airfare changes almost on a daily basis.
Right. I mean, that's a huge incentive, especially for someone who has possibly been thinking about doing it, but maybe hasn't taken the leap because of the financial aspect. Some institutions do offer you'll pay back for your education, but you have to pay for it up front and then submit it for reimbursement. So, I mean, this is that's
right, or commit a couple of years of your life for that.
So you do the MAMO MQSA. What other modalities does AHEC have that they offer?
We span the spectrum with imaging. We are owned and run by radiographers and always have been. So we span the spectrum. We have the structured education for the CT and the MRI for those who are wanting to take their advanced registry and need that structured education, approved structured education, to be able to sit that registry. We have the DEXA or bone density initial training, which meets those qualifications. The instructor there is renowned. He's actually the bone densitometrist for NASA.
Oh, wow.
So we've got some amazing instructors that are from throughout the country. the 40-hour initial training in mammography. Our CE catalog covers it all, from nuclear cardiology to soft topics. Other reason that I have always enjoyed the webinars is because there are different topics and because of the times that they play. I don't have to worry about rushing home from work or spending an entire Saturday. I can do it in little bitty pieces, 3 or 4 hours at a time. Or if I'm getting close, I can knock it all, knock 6 or 8 hours out on a Saturday or a Sunday. The other thing that I think we do is really cool is with our ultrasound classes, we have live models. So the morning portion is the didactic, and then you go into our scan lab and actually scan with what you just learned.
So do you currently practice as a mammographer?
Not since our class, but yes, I'm looking forward to doing so. I was amazed how much I learned in the class, how passionate most of those technologists really are in their patients and what they're doing. And it was just such a wonderful experience.
This episode is brought to you by x-raytechnicianschools.com. If you're considering a career in X-ray, visit x-raytechnicianschools.com to explore schools and to get honest information on career paths, salaries, and degree options.
Let's transition then. So we have the AHAC, and then, but also too, you said that hand in hand goes with the med relief staffing. Talk to me a little bit about that. Like, do you offer it to students who are there, like, hey, we have this other portion. If you'd be looking for a position, we can help you do that.
There is information that is available here. Most of our clients do require 1 year experience post-graduation. It kind of depends on where they're at and what they're looking for in their career, but we started off in the early 90s, started off here in the city of Houston regionally, like I said, and came up in class, hey, I'm looking for a sonographer, I'm looking for a diagnostic tech for the weekends, or I only want to work weekends. So it sprung from that and then went regionally, and next thing we know, we were doing the state. By 1999, we were staffing the entire country and have been doing so ever since. We were one of the first in Texas to attain the Joint Commission certification when it came around in 2006. I think it kind of goes hand in hand with the same philosophy as our education company, is wanting to be a step apart and to keep that patient care and patient focus is part and parcel.
What's the length of contract that you usually staff for? Is it like shorter or sometimes longer, or it just really depends, I guess, region to region and facility to facility?
It does. Here in the city of Houston, we do a ton of per diem. So, just daily assignments or short-term assignments, couple of weeks. We're a little different from other travel companies in the fact that we will do shorter term. So they may cover an FMLA, it may cover just somebody who's going on vacation for a week or two. Industry standard is either 8 or 13 weeks. And then we have some that have stayed on travel assignments for close to a year, gone away for 13 or so weeks and wanted to go back. So we've had all of it. It just depends on the facility need and the traveler's mindset.
Do you find that the areas that you're staffing for are where they're located within, say, like the state or the country? Are they kind of in more remote areas where they're having a hard time, obviously, finding staff and hiring people? Or is it still in, say, a very urban area with a huge health system?
Staffing is so fluid that today I could tell you that in the urban area, it is what it is, and tomorrow it would be rural. I think overall, we're seeing a little more on the rural side that are searching for staff or have staff that is moving to different areas or did move to different areas post-COVID. But being in the fourth largest city in the US, for us and the per diem market, it's a little bit of both.
Where do you find your staff? Are you people, recruiters going through, like looking through LinkedIn, or do you take applications?
Absolutely. All of the above. We do a ton of referrals. We have on our imaging side, especially in our per diem pool, and a couple of our nurses have been with us for 20 years. So we've got people who have done both local here in the city and then gone out and done travel assignments, or they are travelers and they travel with us for 2 or 3 assignments. We'll go take one with somebody else and then come back. But how we find them is pretty standard. We're, all your social media, we get a ton of referrals. We, of course, advertise, and then plus the LinkedIn.
So let's transition from talking about your two companies to talking about yourself. You received a recent accolade, right? You got an Outstanding Leadership Award at the Health 2.0 conference.
I did. Thank you.
That sounds really exciting.
It's always nice to be recognized, but I don't think any leader can receive an award without having just a great team.
Mhm.
It's really the entire team's award. I just got to be the one that get to pick it up.
Yeah.
But when you have a great group in place, and we're very lucky here, we've got one gentleman who's been here for 31 years, a couple that have been here for 26. Myself and our senior vice president have been here for 22. Most of our staffing people have been here 8 or 9 years. So having that cohesiveness and that synergy and that maturity makes things like that possible.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
team always works together, and someone is usually recognized from that team. But like you said, if it's not with everybody working together, usually you don't have that aspect. So what is exactly the Health 2.0 conference? It's really interesting. I mean, is it mainly obviously for healthcare, but does it focus on a specific area, or is it just the broad umbrella?
it was the first time I had been there, and they have several different areas. They had it for education and some other stuff. They have different forums and classes and stuff. And so I went to things in marketing or AI. It was just kind of a well-rounded different industries. I just happened to get the award and be there for the healthcare portion.
Mhm.
It was interesting.
So, Jence, then you also too have another portion that you were acknowledged for. So you're part of the Joint Commission's Healthcare Staffing Council, facilitator for that. So that sounds like a very important position. You give us a little background on what that exactly is?
Sure. If you don't know, there are different certificates or accreditations that the Joint Commission offers for different industries. For example, home health, laboratory. One of them that they started several years ago, we attained our certification in 2006, is for healthcare staffing. And then about 10 years later, they asked for volunteers from the industry to help them. And the council comes together 2, 3, 4 times a year, depending, and we discuss different things that are affecting the staffing industry and how these trends may be going upward or declining, things that hopefully would make a difference. The Joint Commission listens to our information and does some additional research and surveys. And their goal, I believe, is to help use this to help improve or impact patient care.
The accreditation for these things, what's it look like to go through the process of that? Is it something very stringent? Is it tough to go through?
It just like any other accreditation, whether it's ACR for your department or Joint Commission for the hospital, it can be a little nerve-wracking. We've been very lucky that we've never had anything that we had to go back and correct, but it's very similar. You get the phone call that morning. Now there's a window that you know approximately when your survey is going to be. We've had them here in our office. We've done our last 2 virtually.
Okay.
So it is an evolving sort of thing, but they look at everything just like they do the hospitals. And it's the same sort of indicators: leadership, human resources, process improvement. I think one of the things that has helped us is the emergency preparedness, because from that, we've improved some of the things that we do and how we do and where we store our information because of that emergency preparedness plan. It impacts your quality just like it does in the hospital or outpatient imaging center.
That's really interesting. I mean, I honestly wouldn't have thought that there would be something like that for staffing. It just blows my mind. I mean, obviously for, the healthcare setting, you're dealing with patients on a day-to-day basis, but I guess it makes sense in terms of like the people that you're bringing on to staff these facilities. So there has to be some types of rules and regulations for the companies that are doing the staffing.
Well, I wish more were, just simply because of that, because at least our values and what we're trying to do is in alignment with what the healthcare system is also trying to accomplish, whether it be the background checks or a 10-panel drug test, not just that they go onto a website and go, oh, here, Sally Mae, blah, 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 is the verifying the license, verifying the skills, that a resume actually is authentic. Hopefully it goes hand in hand with what your facilities or the facility is also trying to accomplish.
Off the cuff question, have you ever had applicants who have fudged their credentials?
Oh, girl. Oh, 22 years of staffing, I've seen a lot of things. In fact, the very first class I put together was on resumes.
Yeah.
To teach, yes, because you would be amazed. That old saying of honesty is always the best policy.
Uh-huh.
It will keep you out of trouble professionally.
Do you ever find that people lie about previous employers?
All the time, whether they were released or not. It is my advice would just say, be honest. I was terminated, and while I disagreed with it, I respect their option to do so. Or I left without a 2-week notice because I felt it was in the best interest, of my license
Okay.
instead of fudging it. Honestly, the other thing that we see on occasion that gets caught every single time, is criminal background or ethical violations of a license. So again, honesty is always the best policy.
So going from that, let's talk about the future. Where do you think that we're heading for the future in terms of our education and like the staffing? Is staffing on the uprise, or are we still like bottoming out somewhere down here?
This is not the first time we've seen this cycle in staffing. I think staffing will continue to rise, honestly, because think about it. How much busier are emergency departments and outpatient facilities these days? And with the technology, you can put more patients through, especially CT.
Mhm.
How much faster is CT now than it was 10 years ago? So as technology advances, there will be more need for a technologist. But the future, oh my goodness, this has probably got to be one of the most exciting times to be a technologist or to be in that field. All of the new things that have popped up in the last little bit. Now you've got upgrades in CT and the CT photon therapies and all of those. But what is AI going to look like in 5 years? Nobody talked about it 5 years ago. What is it going to look like in the next 5 years? There are new CT machines specifically for breast health. You've got improvements in software across the board in every industry. Go look at some of the ultrasound images these days. Some of them are stunning. And I don't do ultrasound, but I think they're pretty. As much as software has advanced in the last 10 years or 15 years, we'll see that still swing here in the future. I don't want to get too much into it, but there's some interesting concepts that are being introduced. For example, remote scanning with different technologists being in one location and having tech assistance. People, I think, will have very strong opinions on it, but could it end up being something great for patients in a rural area because of the advancements in telehealth and other things? I don't know. It'll be exciting to watch it and see.
Well, Jence, thank you so much for your insight into education and staffing. Definitely enlightening for myself. I mean, and just to see that it's not even, staffing isn't even just affecting, one certain area within the country. Basically the whole country is being affected at this point. And we're still kind of recovering and coming out of where we were in 2020 going forward.
No, I agree. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate. This was a lot of fun.
Great. All right, guys. This is Jence Garza, the CEO for Advanced Health Education
Bye.
Center. We'll make sure that we put a link below so that if you're interested in doing any continuing education or, checking out another modality, that check out their site to see what is available to you. If you're listening to this and you're looking for a position to possibly travel or just in this area, I mean, lots of staffing companies out there, but MedRelief seems amazing with, how they go hand in hand with AHEC.
Thank you. Well, I hope that we will see you again soon.
All right. All right. Thanks, Jence. You have a great
Thank
day.
you.
We'll see you again.
Bye.
You've been watching The Skeleton Crew, brought to you by xraytechnicianschools.com. On the next episode, join us to explore the present and the future of the rad tech career in the field of radiology.